Bonjour à tous et bienvenue pour la première de ces trois conférences proposées dans le cadre de Hydrogen Business for Climate Connect. C'est en effet en mode digital que nous nous donnons rendez-vous. Pour cette première conférence, pendant 2 heures, nous allons vous parler d'écosystèmes publics et privés. Nous allons voir en France, en Europe et dans le reste du monde comment les acteurs arrivent à se combiner pour proposer à la fois la production et la distribution d'hydrogène pour des usages ayant trait à la mobilité ou à l'industrie. Sans plus tarder, j'aimerais accueillir notre première intervenante, la présidente de la région Bourgogne-Franche-Comté, Marie-Guite Dufay. Je sais qu'elle est en ligne avec nous, Madame la Présidente. Vous pouvez activer votre caméra et votre micro. On est ravis de vous accueillir, Marie-Guite Dufay. La région a été moteur pour cet événement. J'imagine que c'est pour vous une satisfaction de voir que ça devient finalement une réalité.
Yes, I'm very pleased, and would like to welcome the work done by the Future Vehicle Hub and the Regional Economic Agency. 1 year ago, I wanted to put this initiative together to fix within our realities the reality that our territory is a driver for hydrogen at European level. I could see the difficulties because a year is not a long time to manage all this, but I couldn't see the essential difficulty that we have today. I would never have imagined that we would be in this situation. So a big thank you, because I realized that even despite this context, we mobilize. Hydrogen is a topic for the future. Technology attached to it is a huge amount of technology. It's part of the ecological and energy transition, and it's an industrial revolution that we are preparing. Our territory is totally engaged, committed to this revolution. We must do it, and we are grateful, we are thankful. The research, public, academic, university, in our universities, at the University of Franche-Comté, the UTBM, the technical pole at Belfort-Montbéliard, our territory in Franche-Comté, Bourgogne, for 25 years has been pushing, promoting works about the fuel cell. The merging between Burgundy and Franche-Comté meant that all the searchers have met the developers in Burgundy on the wind power and hydrogen. We want to push for green hydrogen on our territory. Thank you, Madame Dufay. You talked about the merging. The roadmap is very ambitious for 2030 in Bourgogne-Franche-Comté. Yes, we have a roadmap over 10 years. We much have a vision in such an approach. We are going to program 90 million over 10 years, but we've already committed with 2 leading axes around mobility and use for the industry. Concerning mobility, I will give as an example the hydrogen train. We are ordering Alstom with other regions, and we have pushed up to 52 million order in last December. We must have the financial means, but also the engineering means to gather all the expertise. And we built a cluster with 2 pillars. One pillar is private, one public. Private pillar gathers companies, and public pillar with the territories, so that information is disseminated, that we can share, and make sure that the expertise is really shared on these topics. We know there are lots of projects ongoing in your region, and some of them have reached their conclusion from this year onwards. We have projects in Belfort, in Auxerre, in Dijon, and the most advanced one in mobility are in Auxerre and Dijon. And I would like to thank the ADEME agency for its strong involvement into our approach. In Dijon and Auxerre, that's where we are going to build a hydrogen production generation station. We'll have it for trains, but also buses in Auxerre. And in Dijon, they already have developed a set of bus routes and also for trucks which are fed by methane. We'll see you again tonight for our conference and tomorrow morning. We are now going to speak with Damien Meslot, who's the mayor of Belfort and president of the Grand Belfort. Thank you for being here live on this TV hub. In Belfort, there's a tradition, and Madame Dufay reminded us of this. There's an expertise. There has been an expertise for decades. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers and the participants to this event, because it's not live, it's live, but it's actually digital. It's a visual conference. Thank you for the organizers. And the history between Belfort and hydrogen started about 20 years ago. In 1999, FC Laboratories started their researches, and thanks to them, we were able to work and lead the topic. The works of Daniel Issel, who's one of the first searchers for the FC Lab, were gain the National Research Center medal. It's a common will of the university, the labs, and the industry, with Belfort and the region leading the way, to have a fully operational hydrogen hub, merging the generation, certification, industrial, and all the uses that the hydrogen pole can give us in the north of Franche-Comté. We have a territorial ecosystem which is developed and an expertise that few regions have. We believed in hydrogen from the start, and today we are able to suggest some projects which have been to their conclusion. There are a few projects ongoing with major companies as well. Transforming the industrial fabric of the north of Franche-Comté has been labeled Innovation Territory. We're part of the 24 territories with this label, and this means that we were able to build a sector project with the dynamic of generation and distribution of hydrogen, which is decarbonated hydrogen for the bus fleet and also for cars and lorries. We will be buying the first hydrogen buses this year, and in 2023 in Belfort the entire bus fleet is going to be running on hydrogen. So it's very important, and this is to accelerate this innovation. Faurecia, which is based in the Doubs department, has built a world-leading expertise center. It's a unique place in Europe. We also have got the authorization to build a center from Rougeot Energy, which is going to be operational in 2022. It will be the world-leading lab for certification of all mobilities using hydrogen. We also have stationary use of hydrogen possibilities for buildings, for houses, which will be heated via hydrogen. So the Belfort area is a leader in the development of this sector. What do you expect from an event such as today? Virtual today, but live in September. We would like to demonstrate the wealth of projects, the wealth of our sector. We're hoping that it will lead, first of all, with Belfort, Grand Belfort and the region. We will hope that we'll get some state funding via the ADEME, European funding, and the goal of this event is that we are ready to go, and we are waiting for what we need to go forward, funds from state and Europe. The first part, we're going straight to the first part. We're going to have a look at what happens in France.
Et je vais demander aux intervenants de cette première partie de bien vouloir activer leur caméra. Il s'agit d'Arnaud Leroy.
Would you like further people who are going to participate? Would you please put your video on? So we have Arnaud Leroy and
on vous attend. Merci d'activer
Mr.
caméra. Je vois que c'est en
Air
train de
Liquide.
se mettre en place.
I
On va
can see
commencer
that we are
par vous, Arnaud Leroy.
ready,
Vous êtes donc
Mr.
le
Offrère.
président de l'ADEME, c'est l'agence française de maîtrise de l'énergie.
So we
Ce qu'on peut rappeler,
now
c'est
have
qu'il y a
the
un plan
ADEME, is the French
français
agency
très ambitieux
for
pour
the
l'hydrogène
management
naturellement
of
et qu'il
energy.
revient donc
There's
à l'ADEME
strong
de mettre en
project
place ce plan
around
notamment à
the
travers des appels à
hydrogen,
projets. Si on peut en
and the
dire un mot.
ADEME
Et merci
is in
d'activer au passage,
charge
bien sûr,
of
votre
tenders. Please
Bonjour
also
à
switch
toutes et
on
tous, vous
your
m'entendez?
microphone.
Absolument. Allez-y, monsieur
Can you
Leroy.
hear me? Yes,
Écoutez,
Monsieur
meilleurs
Leroy.
vœux à tout le monde et j'espère que tout le monde va bien dans cette période.
Best wishes for the
compliquée.
new
Alors,
year
oui, vous avez raison
during
de
this
rappeler,
difficult
la question
period.
de
Yes,
la
you're
stratégie
right
nationale
to talk about
au-delà
the
de
national
de
strategy
l'actualité de France Relance. Donc peut-être que les
and
autres
also
intervenants,
talk
notamment
about
Philippe,
France
nous diront
Relance.
quelques mots. Moi, je vais peut-être me
Philippe
concentrer sur
is going to
ce que
talk
fait
about it.
l'ADEME.
Possibly,
Ça a été
I'm going
mentionné ce
to
matin
remind
aussi
you
par
what
le
the
président de
ADEME
région que je
does.
salue, le
Miss,
maire de
the
Belfort.
president and
Donc,
the
l'ADEME
mayor of the region and the mayor of
depuis un certain
Belfort
temps.
have already
Avant
talked about it.
cette accélération, nous avions déjà
Before
commencé,
this
donc,
acceleration,
notamment avec,
we had
un petit
already
peu moins de moyens, j'en
started
conviens, mais
with less
un succès qui était
means,
quand même,
but
assez
we had
intéressant
some
et
success
surtout qui illustrait la
and
volonté, pour les
illustrating
collectivités locales
that there was
françaises
a
et pour
will
l'ensemble de la filière. Et je
for
remercie,
the French
Philippe
communities
sur ce
and from the
permanent,
sector.
mutuel sur le sujet.
So I also thank Michelin, Air Liquide, and all the other stakeholders to go forward in this sector. We've always shared. It hasn't always been easy, and we have to thank each other and make sure we don't go backwards. First, what do? We manage tenders. There are quite a few ongoing. The territorial, about the territorial ecosystem, mobility, 350 million euros have been put into this topic. Also industrial uses, mobility of course, and all this is open until the end of 2021. There are several closing dates, but it's open permanently, so that's until the end of 2021. So do not hesitate to get in touch with ADEME. Other aspects, it's to be technologies and about demonstrating the sector. This was open later. We are part of the plan to push forward. Going back to what's happened to demonstrate the agility of the sector, we've had quite a few tenders, often in the area of mobility, and several million euros have been committed since the beginning of 2018. 20 projects are ongoing for example, a new filling station. We also have projects on electrolysis and cogeneration. That's for the future. And of course, there's a project on the rail transport, and that's 22 million euros through ADEM from the state on this project. So as you can see, it's available, it's open, and the question now is we need projects linked to these standards. The projects need to be ambitious. What we want to do, there are already a few projects, but we want more ambitious projects with volumes, with concrete steps, because a project is a piece of paper and it needs steps to be implemented. And I think France has a role to play at European level. We work a lot on the BPI on this topic in Europe, and we are available to be there with the stakeholders in this sector. We have 10 billion euros committed, including aviation. It's for us now to give the money exactly where it needs to go. And we can see that decarbonation is a top topic at the moment for the state. Hydrogen has a role to play in this decarbonation project. We're going to ask Philippe Boucly to please
France Hydrogène, c'est l'ex-AFIPAC, c'est donc l'équipe de France, un petit peu de la filière hydrogène.
We are talking here about AFIPAC. It's the French team about hydrogen. So it's important for the beginning of 2021. Good morning all, and Happy New Year to everybody in the sector.
Nous sommes effectivement, je l'ai dit en son temps et je le répète là, nous sommes effectivement très satisfaits des avancées faites au mois de
very pleased with the advances in September and the continuity of the public involvement.
Très prochainement,
we will
janvier, puisque
go through a step up. In January, there will be the first meeting of the National Council on Hydrogen. So, above the very high volume of funds given, the few billions up to 3.4 in the next years, there's a governance which is being implemented with the National Coordinator of Hydrogen. In this committee or council, you will have the presidents of the strategic sector presidents. There are a strategic committee on the sector which have something to do with hydrogen. For example, it's building, chemistry, aviation, also maritime industry. We have steel industry, mining. A big part of the French industry has stakes in there. Catherine McGregor from ENGIE, Jean-Bernard Lévy from EDF, and Benoît Potier as well from Air Liquide have stakes in there. We have also representatives of all the technologies. So all the French industry is now getting together to push forward this strategy. So the next decade will be the hydrogen decade. We have what I call the 1,000 factor. Currently, we have less than 7 megawatts of electrolyte. We need to go to 70 megawatts. This demonstrates the change of scale that we need to reach this goal, and that's where we work. We see that the state is behind you. The regions and the communities have, from the beginning, played a role, and it's because of them that there was an impulsion this sector. All the regions in France are members of France Hydrogène, and there were strategies, roadmaps, build-ups for these regions with big funds, and there's a new phase to create these territorial ecosystems. And Arnaud mentioned this earlier on. I heard 350 million euros in the first batch, so we can bring together the various needs and uses and to implement these ecosystems and to minimize the costs and allow access to this new energy sector to most of its future users. Offrère, representing Faurecia, who's part of the PSA group, present in Bourgogne-Franche-Comté. You have a CTO, which is a head of technology. So in Bavent, not far from us, there is a center which already houses a research center on hydrogen, a world-leading center. Thank you to have invited us to this event. So let me remind you the areas in which Faurecia is an actor on mobility. So on the one side, you have the storage system with the containers, and another side, we have also another joint venture with Milchin for the fuel cells. We are developing these areas on the territory here in Bourgogne-Franche-Comté. We have a lot of activities at the moment, and we work, of course, with university, with the future mobility sector hub. We also have created this world-leading expertise center on mobility in Bavent for research. So we have the research and development sector for mobility for Faurecia. It's a big project for us. We invested about 50 million euros. So what we do there is to find how to build tanks, and we have a few pictures to show. First, we're going to show a picture of the site and a couple of other images to show what you do in this center. So we will propose several generations of tanks with the goal to optimize the product, but also to reduce the cost. We have to reduce from 4 to 10 or dividing by 4 to 5 the products we are proposing. So first we have the design, and then we have the test bench. It's very important to test, and I think we are leading in the world with our test center. We need to do very high pressure tests. So at the beginning, we have containers at 700 bars, but they are tested at 1500 bars. So we need a specific specific tools to test. We can't talk about design without manufacturing, and again, we have specific teams to make sure that our products are robust enough. We invested a lot in the R&D center. We also invested into a manufacturing site, a plant not far from Bavent. Bourgogne-Franche-Comté is a very important territory for us, from which we will start to reach the rest of Europe and the rest of the world. We share with several instances, several other bodies. So the co-chair of the Hydrogen Council is going to be from Faurecia. We're also involved in Europe with Hydrogen Europe and also with the Hydrogen Council at the world level.
Merci Christophe Auffrère.
Thank you, Christophe Auffrère.
Un autre écosystème régional.
We are going to talk to another ecosystem in Paris with the high taxis.
So Mathieu Gardy from Taxi Hype, c'est une société, la STEP, la société des taxis électriques parisiens. Mathieu Gardy, pourquoi avoir fait ce choix de taxis à hydrogène
Parisian taxis company. So why did you choose hydrogen taxis rather than electric taxis?
Le choix de l'hydrogène s'est imposé
So the choice of hydrogen became obvious as soon as the hydrogen possibility became to be recognized. So this is a very specific profession, and we thought that hydrogen was particularly well adapted. So we're in a system which is very similar to the normal combustion engine taxi. So this is a market where there is a very high demand already. So the taxi companies are looking for solutions for their fleet so that they can pollute less. Most taxis in Paris are diesel taxis. This is leading to fines from the European Commission because there's polluting taxis. So hydrogen is a perfect solution for a quick transition of these fleets of taxis because this doesn't involve the operators changing the way they work. So we've created a first client, the STEP, to show the way. So this allows us to roll out this ecosystem. Then we will be able to convert the other taxi operators in the same way. So these are blue taxis in Paris, which everybody recognizes.
Toyota Mirai, si on peut nous la présenter à l'écran.
So
on la connaît de loin parce qu'effectivement,
there is the Toyota Mirai, for example, which is a hydrogen car.
Alors effectivement, on a fait en sorte qu'on puisse les
so we have decided to make them recognizable.
Un peu avant tout le monde, mais avec ce qui existait en termes de volume à l'époque, j'ai noté le facteur 1000 de Philippe. Moi, ça
Philippe was talking about this 1000 factor. So we will see where we've got to along this track in the coming months. But what was very important for us was the partnership with this company from a capitalistic point of view, so that we can show the public authorities and the industrial players that this is the way ahead. So we worked without Air Liquide. We couldn't have started this project, so we thank them for participating. But for the future, we also need other industrial partners.
Alors, il y a une société qui a été créée avec plusieurs partenaires, et donc c'est un ensemble de services que vous proposez en fait.
That has been created, so you're providing drivers with a package of services. So what we want to do is to get things moving quickly and massively. So we need the prices to come down, to get refueling stations in place, etc. So we're trying to scale up along with the customers and the operators by producing this package. So we're talking about the passenger transport market. So we want to capture this market. So we've rolled out a booking application. So we're rolling out a system of access to refueling stations. So the idea is that the service will be of a comparable price to the normal combustion engine taxi service.
Merci Mathieu pour cet éclairage. Je propose
So thank you for these explanations.
Pour Air Liquide, votre partenaire.
So your partner is Air Liquide because they are running the petrol stations. So Pierre-Étienne Franc is going to talk to us about that. So can you hear me?
On vous entend très bien.
Can you hear me?
Pour Air
Yes.
Liquide, c'est un projet emblématique.
So for Air Liquide, these taxis in Paris are an emblematic project.
C'est un exemple de ce qu'il faut pour qu'un écosystème
So this is a good example of what you need for an ecosystem to work. We need to trust entrepreneurs who are actually exceptional, people like Mathieu. So we want to encourage larger groups to take risks. So the idea is for us to scale up more quickly. So what's emblematic about this project is that we have industrialists, Toyota companies, car manufacturers, etc. So we're hoping to work with them closely in the next few months. So the idea is that we have an infrastructure company which is now ramping up as the need arises. So once it reaches the full scale, then it needs to be profitable. And that's why we've been working with Mathieu to achieve this. And we've created a model that's applicable. And then it's a model that can be replicated in other cities in Europe, in France, in Europe, and around the world. So the ramping up quickly with hydrogen is critical because there's a lot of talk about boats, heavy-duty trucks, but costs will come down if we have a lot of utility vehicles that use hydrogen. So that means we need a lot of tanks. So this is why we're talking about goods transport in particular. So this light-duty mobility is also essential for this industry, and it's because it means we can move the whole system downwards. We can make it more competitive. We can roll out a system of suppliers, etc., which will become gradually more structured. So we need to create volume for it to be profitable. Obviously, that's a challenge for us because we have to find customers. And for these customers, that means that they're looking at a different solution to what they're used to. So we hope that the ADEME will support us. So our first role is to capture CO2, if you like. So there's a big effort to create infrastructure, to create refueling stations worldwide. But there are some, obviously, in Paris now. Here's an example of one at Roissy, in the Alma area of Paris. Yes, we are planning more stations, of course. Now it's SLCO, which is investing in the distribution centers and vehicles. Perhaps you could say a few words about that. Thank you, Mathieu.
Pardon, oui, donc effectivement pour l'imager ce que disait Pierre-Étienne, nous on déploie la flotte et en même temps on déploie les stations.
So we're rolling out stations and the fleet. In 2021, we have 4 stations planned, which will be at Porte de Saint-Cloud in Paris. These 4 stations are part of a project which is funded by the ADEME, but also the region authority, the Paris Council, and Europe. So after that, we're planning before 2024, 16 extra stations, so that will be about 20 in the Paris region. And we'll be filing an application for approval with the ADEME in December for the next stations. So the idea is to densify the network. So we're starting with this first contract with the taxi company, but we want to use that to bring in other customers and other users, such as logistics, heavy-duty trucks, etc. So they will be able to take advantage of this full-scale system. So the capacity that we're aiming for is about 1 ton per day for the moment. So that's the current stations, but then we'll be moving up to something on a bigger scale, which will allow us to reduce costs and to allow us to bring in other players, which will create a virtuous circle, which will profit the entire industry. So for those of you who are listening on YouTube, you can ask questions if you want to. So I have Emeline who is taking your questions. Do we have any questions already? Charlie?
Est-ce que Toyota et les Japonais ne sont pas trop en avance sur les réservoirs? C'était bien ça la question?
So is Toyota not too far ahead with tanks? I'm not sure who wants to answer this question.
Si je la reprends différemment,
so perhaps I can turn it a different way. So the standard for the stations is 700 bars. So that seems to be the standard specification so far. Yes, including for heavy goods vehicles. Just to answer the question, yes, Toyota and Hyundai are well ahead on this subject. They have fleets out on the road, whereas they were ahead until now. I think we're catching up in terms of technology. We have caught up. So by the end of this year, we will have vehicles on the road with the same levels of performance. And we have other concepts, technologies, materials to optimize costs and quantities. So the question that you need to look at is the quantity of hydrogen in the tank compared to the weight of the vehicle. So I think we can have 20% more hydrogen in relation to the mass of the tank. So we can see that there is a significant market for these tanks. And yet these companies don't necessarily intend to integrate that in their own vehicles. Any other questions? So this is a recurrent question. So what kind of hydrogen will supply the stations? Will it be green hydrogen? So can anybody answer that? So, yes, I can say a few words about that. So the idea is to have a carbon-free solution. But the capacity for the moment for production of hydrogen with electrolyzers, so that is a decarbonized solution. So this is one solution. In some cases, for questions of footprint, it's also relevant to use liquid distribution systems because you can't bring in very large electrolyzers into the Paris region because it takes up a lot of space. So there's the liquefied version. So you could, when you have liquid hydrogen or liquefied hydrogen, you can put 10 times more in a truck than you can in gas form. So these are things which are going to change as the needs develop. Yes, so in some cases there will be an electrolyzer on site. I think we need to be pragmatic. This is an industry that we're just getting started.
déploiements seront avec de la production locale.
So the next systems that are coming out will be green hydrogen systems with production systems on site and local production sites. I think we need to be pragmatic, and it's true that we'll be able to use zero-emission trucks to deliver liquefied hydrogen to refueling stations. So it will be more and more green. So any other questions?
Alors, c'est une question qui s'adresse peut-être plutôt à Mathieu, justement.
A question for Mathieu, perhaps.
Donc, les autres taxis, les autres compagnies de taxis.
So what about
par rapport justement aux négociations pour les
Are you negotiating with the other taxi companies and the independent taxi drivers for a change to hydrogen?
Le client final, entre guillemets, c'est le chauffeur. Donc,
so our final customer, our end customer, is the driver. So that means independent drivers. So our strategy is to offer this product to them, but to do that, it needs to be ready. So we've been working on it for 5 years already to perfect the product. So once the product is ready, we will be able to offer it to the entire market, but only once it's completely ready. Once we've got enough refueling stations and the whole system is robust enough. So I think that taxis will choose to change over, not just because the system is ready, but because there is an interest in it for them and their customers. So we have to get the system going, and we need to encourage customers to want to seek out zero emissions taxis. So thank you very much. Let's move on to the next sequence. Europe shows the way.
Et c'est un nouveau panel.
So this is a new panel that's joining us now. So thank you very much to the previous speakers. So now we have the last. Christophe Offray is remaining with us from Faurecia. So Valérie Bouillon-Delporte from Hydrogen Europe, who's going to talk about the partnership with the EU.
En tout cas, il y a Valérie Bouillon-Delporte qui est là.
So Valérie Bouillon-Delporte is here already.
Madame Hydrogène chez Michelin.
So you are Mrs. Hydrogen at Michelin, and you're chairman of Hydrogen Europe. And I think you can talk to us about the European Commission's very ambitious projects for hydrogen. So thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to talk to you about progress that's being made at European level. So in spite of the pandemic and the circumstances which prevent us being together today, but there is a lot of work going on hydrogen in Europe and in several European countries. Just to give you an overview, so everything is connected to the Green Deal, which is a European Commission project, which is the roadmap to Europe's future growth. So hydrogen represents one of the pillars of Europe's growth. So this Green Deal is accelerating the hydrogen project. So this new generation EU also counts hydrogen as one of its pillars. So Europe is mobilized. The strategy came out in July with a very ambitious roadmap. Philippe Bouquet was talking about France's ambitions. So Europe is talking about 2 times 40 gigawatts of capacity by 2030. So this is very ambitious. So the industrial companies also have big ambitions. So if we look at what they're ready to roll out by 2030, we're looking at 430 billion euros of investments over the next 10 years. So Europe is really playing with the big players. So I'm going to go through all the schemes, but there are a lot of projects which come together in a holistic program. So mobility is one of the important uses of hydrogen. What's important is to set up the infrastructure. So there's a directive on refueling infrastructures. There are also programs to encourage the use of zero-carbon vehicles, directive regulations, etc. And then schemes to encourage the production of hydrogen, carbon-free hydrogen in particular. So there's encouragements to use renewables. So in the July hydrogen strategy, there is also the emission system integration program which has come out. There's also strategy on smart and sustainable mobility. There are also ambitions as regards infrastructures, 500 stations, moving up to 1,000 by 2030. There's an ambition to get 30 million zero-emission vehicles very quickly and 900 million by 2030. So the European Commission is moving in this unified direction of setting up a robust, sturdy industrial base so that the systems can develop. So there's the UPCE. So there are various schemes in place to help industrialists so that we have a strong hydrogen industry in Europe which is capable of carrying off important markets in Europe and in the rest of the world. Because as Faurecia said before, the ambitions are not limited to Europe. So this common interest project, so Christophe Effrer is particularly interested by that. So the idea is for the industry to be competitive compared to the Asians. So for us and others, we're talking about investments to scale up with and without subsidies, which vary from one place to another. So Faurecia has a big project on tank systems. So there's a new generation which is coming in. So obviously scaling up will allow us to reduce the costs. So we have our big projects. We are also working with Michelin, for example, on another project on fuel cells. So we're working on the next generation of fuel cells. Some of these are disruptive technologies. We're also at the head of a consortium called FORCE, which is working on economic carbon. So we have a project to fund levels of performance which will allow us to use these 700-bar hydrogen tanks. So we're encouraging these movements. So we're also we need to have vehicles, trucks, commercial and other vehicles, which will use these components. And that's obviously, as we roll it out, that will allow us to reduce the prices. So thank you to Christophe. So back to Valérie Bouillon-Delporte. So there's this Green Hydrogen Alliance, which is coming into being. So the idea is for industrials to work together. So we talk about the hydrogen Airbus. So there are all kinds of names for these different projects, but the common interest industrial projects, the IPCIE. So this is not just another funding program. The IPCEI is a mechanism. It's a commission scheme intended for states to remove the ceilings on state funding of investments. So obviously, everybody is interested in this because the idea is to get to scale up to something practical rollout. So we're already in the second wave, which is going to facilitate scaling up at the level of industry. So this is in line with the European ambition to have a practical industry. So what we're doing is identifying the industrial companies which are involved. So there are calls for projects in Portugal, Poland, Spain, Italy, France, Belgium. So some of these have already closed. Most of them are still ongoing. So Germany and Austria should have put out a call for projects recently, but it's a little bit late. There's also the Czech Republic, Hungary. So practically all the countries in Europe are starting to work on this. So they all have dedicated budgets for this. So in France, it's 1.5 billion. So we're talking large amounts of money. So there are activities at very high level. In France, Mr. Macron, the president himself, is sponsoring this project. Mrs. Merkel in Germany is sponsoring the German project. So they're looking at which companies are going to be involved, so they're trying to identify partnerships, potential partnerships, so that they could create collaborations at European level and at across European industry. It's very complex in some cases. You can see that in the battery projects, there are 52 different companies. Some of them, this is a project that was launched in 2019, which still hasn't been signed by the European Commission. So it's a very complex system because there are a lot of companies, a lot of bodies that are interested and getting involved. So what we need is driving forces, kind of engines to carry the system forward. So we hope that we'll be able to finalize the first wave of this system by the end of the year. So the second mechanism, so the body that the European Commission set up is the European Clean Hydrogen Alliance, which is working with funders, regions, public authorities, and industrialists so that they can steer projects. There are two components to this. So the idea is to create projects that go in the direction that the European Commission wants. And the second aim is to create confidence, to get these different stakeholders working together. So this will cover the production of green hydrogen, the distribution, transport of hydrogen, so use of hydrogen in mobility, industry, residential uses, and also hydrogen in the energy sector. So the first meetings are expected to take place this quarter. There will be an annual forum which was launched in November, the 23rd of November last year. So there are the European Commission, 6 national ministers are involved in this. This is very strongly supported by the European Commission because it's been steered by the European Commission, along with a number of associations like Hydrogen Europe, to make sure that all the stakeholders work together and follow the roadmap fixed by Europe. So thank you for this.
Thank you for explaining this.
J'aimerais qu'on prenne un autre exemple, c'est à travers le partenariat S3 qui amène les régions à coopérer ensemble. Et on a justement 2 exemples avec la région Normandie et la province d'Aragon en Espagne. On va d'abord poser la question à Zoé Buil-Bodin qui représente donc la région Normandie. Peut-être, bonjour Zoé, peut-être d'abord en un mot, c'est quoi le partenariat S3 finalement?
What is the S3 partnership?
Bonjour Laurent, merci beaucoup pour
l'invitation.
Alors le partenariat S3, c'est un partenariat qui a été lancé en 2019, qui est labellisé par la Commission européenne, d'où le titre un peu barbare du partenariat S3. Et il est composé aujourd'hui de 46 régions membres situées dans 13 pays européens, pas uniquement de l'Union européenne, qui est également la Norvège. Et c'est un partenariat qui est coordonné par 4 régions européennes, la Normandie, l'Aragon, mais également Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes et Northern Netherlands.
Netherlands as well, the region in Netherlands and Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes. They are very active
Alors, on a une
in the
petite carte qu'on va montrer
deployment
à l'écran, ça
of
permettra
the
peut-être de mieux
technology. We
visualiser
have a
ce
small
que ça
map.
représente. Et en tout cas, le rôle
to
c'est
give you a
de ce
visual.
partenariat, c'est de pouvoir
So the
faire en
role
sorte que les
of this
régions puissent être
partnership
entendues finalement à
is
Bruxelles.
to make sure that
Et
the
négocier
region
des
have a
projets.
voice in Brussels.
Tout à fait. En fait, ce partenariat, il a 2
That's
grands objectifs.
correct.
Il a
There are
d'abord
2
l'objectif
main
de renforcer
goals.
la visibilité
First,
et la capacité
to
d'influence des régions.
reinforce visibility
Madame
and
Bouillon
influence of
mentionné
the
l'Alliance
region.
pour l'hydrogène propre
Mrs.
lancée en juillet par la
Bouillon-Delport said
Commission. Au début,
that
la
there's a
Commission n'avait pas du
project
tout pensé à inclure
for
les régions dans cette
inclusion
initiative. Et c'est parce que notre
by
partenariat s'est
the
mobilisé
EC
qu'on a obtenu d'être
in
impliqué
July,
pleinement.
and that's
Et
because of our
aujourd'hui, les régions
partnership
sont représentées
that
dans les
gave us
différentes tables rondes
the power to be
thématiques qui ont
included
été évoquées.
on
Et donc,
various
nous aurons un mot à
subjects,
dire
on various topics
dans l'élaboration
where
des
we would
futures
have a
réglementations
voice
européennes et des futurs
in
IPCEI sur
establishing
l'hydrogène. C'est vraiment
future
important.
regulation
Deuxième
and
grand
European
objectif,
structures.
c'est améliorer l'accès
The
au
second
financement
goal
européen géré
is
par la Commission européenne.
improve
Et
access
donc, pour
to
cela, le
European
partenariat a mis en
funding,
place des
and
groupes de
for
travail
this
thématiques. Par exemple, sur
we
les
have
15 longues distances
implemented
hydrogène sur le maritime,
sector
on va en monter un sur les
workshops.
compétences.
We will have one on
L'idée étant
skills
de faciliter
with the
l'émergence du
idea
projet.
of
Et aussi, on va bientôt se
helping the
mobiliser
emergence
sur
of the
les
project.
solutions
We'll
hydrogène
also
pour
start
décarboner les régions industrielles.
on hydrogen solutions for the decarbonation of industrial areas. These are important topics for us. Francisco Villalonga is online with us from Spain. Hola, Francisco.
Ça va bien?
Thank you for your invitation. I'm in Brussels, actually. I'm not in Spain.
C'est pour ça qu'il y a un peu moins de soleil alors peut-être.
That's why there's a few, not so much storm. Well, Spain is under snow at the moment, so... Well, in Belfort here, we're also on the snow, so there you go. So we mentioned earlier on the industrial regions, and Aragon is there. It's an industrial region. You've been working on green hydrogen for a few years. We have studied this technology for quite a few years. This was done by a foundation called Aragon Hydrogen. And they supported local projects. Also, lately, the European project we supported the European project on hydrogen.
Malgré tout cela,
despite all this, we have to say that the deployment of hydrogen, industrial hydrogen in Aragon hasn't reached what we wanted.
Une question simplement parce que qu'est-ce qui fait que finalement vous avez trouvé des intérêts communs avec la Normandie?
How did you find common interest with Normandy? You're not exactly in the same area of Europe. How did you decide to cooperate?
Disons, ça venait un peu de loin déjà. D'ailleurs,
we've already started a long time ago. We were already cooperating on mobility, but
aussi ici pour moi à Bruxelles et par l'intérêt des projets européens et en particulier depuis que la Commission a mis en marche les spécialisations intelligentes pour l'innovation. Ça nous a obligé à tous les régions à vraiment évaluer quelles sont nos capacités, quelles sont vraiment
that led us to evaluate our capacities and look for people who shared the same interest and work together to be more efficient, and more particularly within the regions, because Aragon is a small region. We made a lot of efforts to deploy our own projects at regional level, but we wanted to go further, and we had wanted to share with other regions.
On voit d'ailleurs que les principaux pays européens finalement se lancent
The
dans
main
l'hydrogène, et c'est le cas
European
de votre
countries
pays,
have
Francisco.
started using hydrogen. This is the case for your country, Francisco.
En octobre,
In October,
le espagnol
the Spanish government announced
son plan espagnol pour l'hydrogène, et comme
Spanish plan for
vient de
hydrogen,
présenter,
as
ça
Mrs.
aussi encadré d'un côté dans le fait de la crise de Covid et le plan de
fact, because of the COVID crisis,
accélérer tout ce qu'on avait un peu en tête. Et de l'autre côté, pour l'Espagne aussi,
for Spain,
pour la décarbonisation
for
et aussi pour la digitalisation, le Green Deal.
and digitalization of technologies. With the concrete case of hydrogen in Spain, we are highlighting generation and distribution, because we're part of a synergy of renewable energy. We can produce, generate green hydrogen. There are also investment of €9 million.
Et comme étape intermédiaire, pour atteindre l'objectif aussi de 4 gigas pour l'Espagne, on estime qu'ici à 2024, nous devons faire possible d'avoir une puissance installée d'électrolyse entre 300 et 600.
Between up to 600
par les intervenants précédents, et par exemple en particulier Philippe.
As we said, as Philip in particular said, it's always the egg and chicken problem. We have to start generating, we have to implement the structure, and then find the application. If we don't do everything together, we will never start. This is why ecosystems are interesting.
Eh bien, il a des liens avec
so is Bill Baudin on this partnership. So there are links with this project in Europe. So the topic of training and skills is being upscaled in Brussels. We have links with Hydrogen Europe on this topic in Brussels. We saw it was important to implement projects to upscale the sector, and all the stakeholders must be around the table. The partnership got in touch with Hydrogen Europe to create a regional pillar. It's the very beginning. All options are open, but we can see that there are common interests with all the integrated uses of hydrogen on the territory. Let's go to the questions. I am now asking Emeline, what questions do we have on the chat? Do we have any questions, Emeline?
Alors, on me demande en fait les objectifs de réduction du CO2 pour transport et mobilité. Alors, Valérie, c'est une question plutôt pour vous. On sait que l'Europe, justement, a durci les émissions par rapport au transport.
We know that Europe has strengthened its regulation.
C'est un vrai game changer, hein, puisque
it's a real game changer,
au niveau des véhicules légers, on est passé à moins 55% de réduction de CO2 d'ici 2030. Et pour la première fois l'année dernière, a été mis en place aussi des objectifs de réduction de CO2 pour les véhicules lourds, pour les camions.
We also have objectives for HEVs. It depends on the manufacturers as well. They need to have solutions to offer. For HEVs, for example,
15% à l'horizon 2025
we are thinking of minus 20%, 25 and 30 in 2030.
Donc c'est une information publique. Iveco, quand il analyse l'impact de cette réglementation sur sa production annuelle,
analyze the impact on its production, it means that from 2025, all vehicles above 16 tons, they will have to produce up to 60% of their production with zero emission. Whatever they're going to use, hydrogen or a combination, it doesn't matter, but it's an accelerator. In terms of light vehicles and for intensive mobility, we had a good example with high, but also for vans. As soon as you use your vehicle intensively, you need to combine technologies, and hydrogen is a solution which is going to be more and more adopted. Do we have other questions?
Alors, une question qui concerne plus spécifiquement la France sur les projets d'électrolyse à grande échelle, supérieure à 100 MW. C'est bien
large scale electrolysis over 100 MW. Who can give us an answer?
Valérie, je ne sais pas si vous avez
Valérie,
des indications
do you
par
have
rapport
an
à des grands projets
indication?
français.
Si Philippe Bouquet est encore
Alors
en
peut-être que Philippe de France
is
Hydrogène
still around from France Hydrogène. I'm sure he's still with us.
Récupère dans la galaxie
We have
de
to get
tous ceux
him
qui sont
back
connectés au sein de cette conférence en tant que président de France Hydrogène. Je vois qu'il est là. Philippe, avez-vous une réponse par rapport à cette question?
Philippe, you have a reply.
Il y a un certain nombre de projets qui sont dans les
cartons.
Alors peut-être pas 100 MW, mais autour de 100 MW. C'est notamment les projets promus par H2V Énergie, H2V Industrie, en Normandie, à Dunkerque, à Fos. Enfin, il y a un certain nombre de projets qui sont
Marseille as well. There are
il y a également des projets dans le sud de la France sur
in the south of France as well,
où il s'agit
where we could have a lack hydrogen. Electrolysis should really be in Spain, but it's a good news for European project. The idea is to generate in Spain, where the renewable energy is cheaper to produce than in France. So the hydrogen would be produced in hydrogen and brought to France to feed turbines.
Vous avez des projets également,
we also have projects
un peu plus prospectifs,
more
développés par
in the pipeline, literally, developed by Genvia, which is a consortium with Schlumberger, Vicat.
C'est dans le sud de la France.
It's in the south of France.
De façon à décarboner tout ce qui
to have decarbonated cement factories.
Laurent, je me permets de prendre la parole. On peut ajouter également une information qui est tombée ce matin de Total Energy qui
Total Energy told us this morning they're going to create the biggest green hydrogen production site in the south of France. It will be a 40 megawatt electrolyzer with 5 tons of generated green hydrogen per day. This is the latest news, and we are targeting 1,000 megawatts. Let's now speak about the rest of the world.
I switch to English now to welcome a new panel with Ronald Grossman from Hyundai. We have also Nobuo Tanaka live from Japan, and we keep Christophe Offrer from Forestia. He will still be part of this panel, and Pierre-Étienne Franc will be joining as well. So first I would like to talk with Nobuo Tanaka. Tanaka-san, hello, and thank you for being live in Japan. I know it's already late in your country. So we're going to discuss the Japanese strategy in the field of hydrogen. Japan has been a pioneer so far, but the strategy has been revised due to the strategies coming from Europe and China. So you have some slides. You will make for us a short presentation, only in a few minutes. And we start by a slide with Toyota, because, of course, the very first, let's say, a full 100% series production hydrogen car is the Mirai.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Laurent. This is a very interesting moment about the future of the hydrogen. When I was the executive director of the IEA, International Energy Agency in Paris, I talk about the golden age of natural gas is coming, thanks to the shale revolution in the United States. Now I'm thinking maybe the golden age of hydrogen is coming. And I'm very much convinced, listening to the interlocutors today, that it is happening in Europe. Definitely Europe is enjoying the golden age of hydrogen, and also, of course, coming from renewable energy. And a green stimulus package of Europe is certainly pushing the hydrogen for the future. And Japan has started, as this picture shows, the hydrogen in 2014 when Mirai, the first generation, came. And the Japanese government, together with industry, made up the kind of consortium of JHYME, Japan Hydrogen Mobility, and starting building the fueling stations in Japan. Now we have about 133, and 180 will come this year. Air Liquide is certainly playing a very important role in this consortium together with Toyota. And next slide, please. Yes, this is the strategy the Japanese METI built in 2017, 3 years ago. There's a clear, I would say, targets of mobility, the number of the fuel cell vehicle from 200,000 to 800,000 by 2030. Refueling stations should go up to 900 by 2030, and 300,000 tons of the supply of hydrogen must happen. But this is very modest compared to what we have heard from Europe this year. Next slide, please. And finally, the new Prime Minister Suga made a big declaration in October that Japan should be carbon neutral by 2050. This is a total surprise to many people in Japan, also in the world, but he's very serious and asked the government's offices to come up with targets by the end of December. And this let's say, slide shows what was committed by the Japanese government in December 25th, in the Christmas. And there's a clearly the hydrogen is everywhere in this target. And ramp up consumption across the sectors, all the industrial sectors, to 3 million tons by 2030 and 20 million tons by 2050. And this is 10 times more than the 2017 target. And it covers the ammonia issues and electric generation targets, etc., etc. And we think that important element here is that we have started on the mobility as a main focus of the hydrogen economy, but now we have to enlarge it to the very difficult, let's say, difficult areas or sectors to abate the carbon dioxide, like power sector, like iron making or cement and heavy-duty trucks or aviation. So this new program is certainly a very, very important step toward the hydrogen economy in Japan. We lagged behind Europe and China, but this new initiative may push back Japan to the front runner, I hope. Next slide, please. We have the, let's say, the green hydrogen from the renewables, because now the renewables is very limited in Japan, but this strategy set the targets of 50 to 60% of the electricity generation must come from renewables by 2050. So that gives the green hydrogen. And also we think blue hydrogen can be imported from Middle East, Australia, or North America. The next slide, please. Yes, this is the, excuse me, the one back. I'm sorry. The slide shows this. This is the idea of green ammonia consortium, and they are thinking of importing ammonia from Middle East, the blue ammonia from the fossil fuel with CCUS, or from solar. From Australia, plenty of solar energy, as well as blue ammonia from the lignite. So this is a new trade of blue ammonia as a carrier of the hydrogen. The next slide, please. Of course, there are another way. That is the liquid ammonia. And this is a new venture starting with Australia of importing blue ammonia from lignite through the liquefied hydrogen tanker. The Kawasaki Heavy Industry is moving toward this together with Toyota. The next slide, please. This is the last one, but this is the third modem of transportation. It is called chemical hydrate. Methyl cyclohexane of Chiyoda Engineering. And this is another way of using the regular chemical tanker for transportation. So it could be very cheap, and using the current oil tank for the storage and current oil or chemical tanker for transportation. So we think that with this trading of new hydrogen, maybe this may eventually replace the business model Japan had developed for natural gas. The LNG was the modem of making natural gas as a commodity globally. The shale revolution is exported from the United States by LNG to the world. And ammonia or this hydrogen can be traded as such, and it is going to be the global commodity in the future. And it helps the oil and gas or coal producing country to decarbonize their economy. And JERA, our power company, the thermal power company, joint venture of Tokyo Electric and Tube, declared carbon neutrality by 2050. This JERA is the largest LNG procurer of the world, but they committed to use ammonia 20% and co-mix, co-firing with coal, and eventually using hydrogen with gas and eliminating the carbon dioxide. So this kind of business model can be transplanted to Asian economy, who should use thermal power in the foreseeable future. So this kind of trade with Asian economy as an importer, and together with exporter like Australia or Middle East or United States, may let's say facilitate the golden age of hydrogen in the future. Japan tried very hard to make hydrogen economy by himself or by Toyota only. But that was not enough to create a global hydrogen economy. International collaboration is most important, we learned. And I think Europe is moving toward that direction, and we are very happy to work together and make hydrogen in a golden age in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tanaka-san, for this golden presentation. For your information, if you're interested by the slides, you will be able to download them directly from this, our website, Hydrogen Business for Climate, because Tanaka-san has accepted to display the full presentation. Thanks again. We carry on with Hyundai, so we're going to talk about South Korea in one moment. But first, I would like to introduce Ronald Grassmann. So you're the Vice President in charge of the fuel cells activity. With a background in Europe and North American market, so you joined the company only a few months ago. Ronald, maybe first a comment of what's going on in Europe, so we can see that there is strong ambitions in this continent.
Yeah, thank you very much, Laurent, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to present on behalf of Hyundai. So, as you said, Laurent, we of course watch closely what's going on in Europe, and due to my past, I've been involved at another OEM for many years, and we really see and appreciate the efforts that are done by the governments and the decision makers, not only in Europe but around the globe now. I can totally agree with Tanaka-san that the last 2 years has been a game changer really for the hydrogen industry and also the companies dealing in fuel cells, of course. So as Hyundai, we want to support this transition towards a hydrogen society, but of course we also want to be a major player when it comes to providing the fuel cells that are necessary to make the transition in mobility and beyond. And I heard already in the French presentation several times the word ecosystem. We are a firm believer that you need to tackle this topic with an ecosystem approach. In the past, several years back, we always had the discussion, the chicken and egg discussion. What shall we have first, the cars or the hydrogen stations and so on? I think we have learned from this past. And with the efforts going on over the last years, it shows to the public that we're overcoming more and more this chicken and egg question and trying to approach early markets with a combined ecosystem approach. And later, my colleague Mark Feimüller, who heads the Hyundai Hydrogen Mobility joint venture in Switzerland, will show an example of such an ecosystem that many of you are of course aware of. But Mark will give an insight in how we rolled out this ecosystem.
Yes, so we'll see this later on, that's right.
Yeah, so and Hyundai is very active in promoting such ecosystems. So, of course, we're participating in the Hydrogen Council, we're cooperating with Hydrogen Europe, we're engaged in the United States with the California Fuel Cell Partnership with the Department of Energy, and we want to approach more such ecosystem projects and bring our basically our share into this world. Moving on towards Korea, Korea was a front runner when it comes to hydrogen vehicle and technology development. Nevertheless, it shares a similar fate than Japan when you look at basically the adoption. At one point, the H2 mobility effort in Germany and the Californian efforts, they really showed how you can build a large number of stations and deploy a large number of vehicles by bringing together the main actors. And I believe that the Korean government has really learned a lot over the last years and has implemented a very ambitious plan now on the way to implement this plan. And this plan focuses on deploying 1,200 hydrogen stations by 2040 and over 6 million hydrogen vehicles also by 2040. And I've just returned from my first stay in Korea, and I can really tell you that this is not a mere plan, but here you can see how government and industry players work together. The Korean government has implemented laws that basically show or mandate this path forward. And so the rollout is pretty aggressive. Hydrogen stations are being deployed as we speak. And already in 2022, there is the plan to have over 300 hydrogen stations. in Korea. Also significant investments coming in that area.
Yes, this is very impressive. So maybe we can mention now a new brand from Hyundai. It's H2, and it's a brand to deploy fuel cell for any mobility segment.
Exactly, yes, Laurent. So now going forward, we want to scale our hydrogen fuel cell business. And in the past, we have focused very much on our own vehicles. We are now confident that we have reached a level of robustness and also a cost level that will allow a widespread adoption of fuel cells inside mobility, but also outside of mobility. So we have created the H2 brand. It's written HTWO, standing for hydrogen and humanity, showing also Hyundai's clear path to advanced technologies that are to the benefit of humanity. And in contrast to our Ionic brand, which focuses on battery electric vehicles, this H2 brand is not limited to vehicles. So we also want to bring our hydrogen fuel cells into stationary applications, into trains, eventually also in urban air mobility applications. And this H2 brand is a bit, you could compare it, if I may use that comparison, it's like Intel Inside. So we're saying the propulsion is based on hydrogen fuel cells. The application might be totally different, but we want to basically make the heart of the application, the propulsion, with a unified approach with this H2 brand.
Thank you, Ronald. Please stay online. We carry on with Pierre-Étienne Franc from Air Liquide, who will be also speaking for the Hydrogen Council. Pierre-Étienne, maybe one word about South Korea, because you were very involved in this country as well.
Korea is one of the countries that have basically now overcome most of the other countries in terms of deployments of vehicles, with a strong push both from Hyundai and the Korean government. What's interesting is that they very rapidly managed to deploy, I think, 60 or 70 stations, and now it's in the move to more than 100. And they've very rapidly also tackled both the light-duty vehicles and the bus, which have a very good return to base approach, which is better to basically load the stations and give better economic cases. But if you take more broadly Asia, today you've got more than 20,000 vehicles up and running in Asia, and they represent more than 80% of the overall fleet that is up and running. This figure is both very small and very big. It's small, of course, compared to the development of the batteries, because there is a far bigger number of vehicles on the road. But if you compare it to what was the situation 2 or 3 years ago, it's a very strong move, and the share of Korea is now dominant, while it was California a couple of years ago. And China is almost at the same level, but China is at the same level because they have developed a lot on the buses, on the small, medium-duty trucks. What I would like to add, if you give me one minute, Nicola, is that when we look at the way the world is moving on those topics, indeed 2020 has been a significant year. We heard Valérie just before on Europe, and Europe is basically driving the show with very significant announcements. But that's what's interesting, is that Europe is the only place so far that is trying to have a systemic approach to the topic, trying to both support the green hydrogen production and the downstream users. Today, Asia has been mostly focused into developing the downstream use in transportation. But what Tanaka-san just explained to us a minute ago is that Japan is now extending the range of users, which means that Japan has fully understood, or Japan was the first country to understand the whole system anyway, but they're now moving next step, because they've understood that we need to deploy multi-usage to make the thing work economically. And the strong effort that is pushed by Japan to develop low-carbon hydrogen import solutions, because it's an island with less access to renewables, so they need to import the renewable energy, is going to be instrumental not only for Japan, but for Korea, for Singapore, and for many European countries. Is going to be exactly the same I would say wave as what Tanaka-san explained was triggered 30 years ago for the LNG. And then now, if we move to the US, which is the big question mark, because US, in fact, on the one side appears very small in the topic because there's not much public policy there so far, except California. On the other side, US is now greeting the biggest players in terms of market cap dedicated into hydrogen with a couple of very strong not startup anymore, because when we see the announcements of Plug Power over the last couple of years, it's rather significant. When you see Ballard, when you see Fuel Cell LNG. So the US is probably the one that is missing, but we expect that with the current dynamic and the new administration coming on stream, US will also push a strong policy, and then it will become unavoidable that hydrogen is a key part of the energy transition.
Pierre-Etienne Franc, what we can say about the Hydrogen Council, it's a very useful organization, and there is a global awareness worldwide of the potential of hydrogen energy.
Yeah, indeed, it's another demonstration. I think we've got many demonstrations of the dynamic. Hydrogen Europe has had a fantastic growth over the last couple of years. They've achieved a fantastic support for the technology in Europe. But if you take the council where we try to focus on very large companies and to gather them at the CEO level, we started 4 years ago 13 CEOs. Now we have we're going to announce next week we have our next council meeting. It will be digital, but we will announce that we have passed the 100 mark, and I think we're close to 108 or 110. I don't have the exact number because it's moving regularly. And people are coming really from all fronts, and the new wave of newcomers that we will announce next week is full of many US names. So that's also a good sign that there is a dynamic. We will also do something, as you know, the Council has tried to basically pave the way for a structured dialogue on the role of hydrogen by developing relatively well-structured studies showing the ambition, what was the scale of study, trying to give an indication of the roadmap to reach competitiveness. And now what we are going to show and to publicly announce next week is two things. First, we need to clarify for people that are still, I would say, uncertain or critical on hydrogen, we need to clarify the LCA, the life cycle assessment of the technology. And so we've done, again, a big study to explain that it is possible, of course, that hydrogen is a clean solution and is indeed contributing to the energy transition. That's fundamental, there's no other way. So we will have a big study on that. And we are also going to do something that we will do yearly now, is to revisit every year the status of the deployments, the status of the number of projects on the go, and the evolution of the cost perspective. And we finished that for this year. We will be, I don't know if it's going to be published next week or in a couple of weeks, but basically the dynamic is positive. I concur with what Valérie said. The number of projects announced are significant, more than 200. Some of them are more realistic than others, let's be clear. We will have a need to make sure the projects that come on stream are realistic, because we need to use extremely wisely the public money. We are under scrutiny. We know that public money will become scarce. So we need to make sure the projects are the scale projects used for the right use and for the sake of decreasing the cost of the technology. But I think the dynamic is indeed extremely positive, and thanks to all the players around the table.
Thank you, Pierre-Etienne. To conclude, one word from Christophe Offray from Forestia. So, of course, as a global player, you're not only interested by the French and European market, but they're interested, for instance, by what's going on in China, which is the biggest market in the world.
Okay, maybe one point before about Europe, because we've been awarded also the hydrogen storage system for Hyundai. Hyundai is going to develop those 1,600 trucks in Switzerland. So it's a big order for us, because there will be 7 different tanks. This is why we speak about the hydrogen tank system or storage systems. And they will carry around 35 kilos of hydrogen, so being able to have an autonomy which will be around 700 kilometers. So it's very important. It's 10,000 tanks, so it's a very important order for us. And of course, it is thanks to also the proximity that we have with Hyundai in Korea, because we have a lot of R&D centers also for clean mobility and things like that. that, so we have a good proximity. And of course, we want to continue to work with Hyundai, of course. Then for China, of course, China, we are all targeting China. We know that China has a target also for the development of the fuel cell vehicle and mobility around hydrogen. I would say that in terms of technical standpoint, so for example, for the tanks, they don't have the same kind of regulation. So they have a new regulation now which is coming for type 4 hydrogen tanks, which is a composite, I would say, tanks, and before it was made with also aluminum liners, for example. So it is quite new. It has been voted at the end of last year. So this is why we can come with our new technology. So there is, of course, a big market for that, and also for the fuel cell. And for the fuel cell, they target more, for the time being, medium duty and heavy duty vehicles. In a first step, of course, we are looking for also LCV, light commercial vehicles, because as we said before, if we want to get the scale in the end, we will need also to have those kind of orders to scale up a lot the number of tanks and components that we will deliver. So it's very important for all of us, I think, and of course, we welcome all those strategy, and of course, we are very focused on that, and we have a lot of also teams working on that. We have started to make an R&D center also for the tanks in China, and also we will deliver also, and we will work also for the fuel cell stacks with Symbio.
Okay, thank you, Christophe. Let's see if we have some questions coming from the chat. So just asking Emeline Conversé, do we have any questions? So we have a question for Tanaka-san. Again, it's a question about the economical side between ammonia and the question? And liquid hydrogen, so on the economical advantage. Yes, put your microphone on.
Yes, the liquid hydrogen and as a tanker, it is a very new thing. So building the tanker is a huge cost at this moment without going to the volume. But ammonia is the substance of toxicity. So each has a different issues to cover. To ammonia as a fuel is a new challenge. Where to build a tank, how to make it a safety. The transportation cost of ammonia is probably cheaper than liquid hydrogen as a tanker. Methylcyclohexane is also, it is a toluene with three particles of hydrogen. So that is another option. So it is not only the transportation cost, but we have to think about all other infrastructure costs for this new mode. But the Japanese government is now moving toward the deregulation, which prohibit the deployment of renewables and hydrogen. I hope that we are moving quick to make this as a new business models for transportation. And when the volume comes, certainly the cost is getting cheaper and cheaper. So with green hydrogen or blue hydrogen, the currently blue hydrogen is probably cheaper than the green, but the green hydrogen is getting cheaper when the renewables coming abundant, like Europe. So it all depends on these costs and which one is competitive. It's very, very difficult to know at this moment.
Okay, thank you. Maybe one more question. Okay, so it's a balance again for the production of ammonia and ammonia versus liquid hydrogen. So it's again, please tell me the question in the ear. Okay, so on the ethical side, what is the balance between ammonia and liquid hydrogen again? Did you understand the question, Tanaka-san? It's again for you.
What? Is it an economic cost of ammonia and
no, not an economical, but on the balance in terms of energy.
Okay, well, in terms of energy, if ammonia is used as co-firing in the coal thermal power plant, certainly that reduce the carbon dioxide emission from the coal power plant. And the application of ammonia for cogeneration or co-firing is much easier than the hydrogen-only, let's say, thermal power. So using ammonia as a transition toward carbon-free thermal power, I think ammonia has a very, very interesting role to play for the time being, because if you use 20% of ammonia by burning with coal, then it is applicable to such country like in ASEAN, India, or China to reduce carbon dioxide emission, and gradually shifting toward ammonia with natural gas burning, or pure hydrogen with natural gas, and reducing using the current infrastructure toward carbon-free thermal power in the future. So ammonia's role is definitely as a transition fuel for carbon-free hydrogen. I think there is a very interesting and important role. That's the reason why JERA, the biggest thermal power company in Japan, declared carbon neutral by 2050. Without ammonia, they cannot do that.
Okay, thank you. And this is the end for this session. Thanks again for all the speakers. We carry on with the next sequence. Sorry, because the time is running and we are late. But anyways, this is very interesting. I hope you appreciate our conference. So we have in line some other speakers with Yannick Bonin from Storengy, Taya Kronborg from Life. We have also from Norway, Jon André Løkke from the Nel company, and Pierre-Etienne Franc stays with us from Air Liquide. We start with Yannick Bonin from Storengy, which is a subsidiary of Engie Energy Group. You with us, Yannick?
Yes, hello.
Hello. So we're going to see with you how we can produce hydrogen, because there are several ways to do so.
Yes, so there are several ways to produce hydrogen. Indeed, the way this is, which is well known, is gray hydrogen. Produced from steam methane reforming of gas. This is about 40% of the production of hydrogen in France. Unfortunately, when you produce hydrogen, gray hydrogen, you've got about 10 kilo of CO2 produced.
Excuse me, I think we have some problems. Excuse me, 1 second, Yannick. The other speakers should cut their microphone. For the moment, only Yannick Bonin is speaking. So, once again, you were mentioning grey hydrogen, Yannick, but it's not, of course, the only way to produce hydrogen.
No, there are other ways, and we aim at replacing grey hydrogen with renewable hydrogen. So the other ways is hydrogen as a byproduct of some processes. For instance, you've got 40% of the hydrogen produced in France, which is a byproduct of refineries. This byproduct is for this byproduct, you've got about 13 kilo of CO2 produced for each kilo of hydrogen. There is another byproduct, hydrogen as a byproduct, which is the byproduct of coal process, coke process, and this is about 14% of the production of hydrogen in France. For this one, you've got about 20 kilos of CO2 for each kilo of hydrogen produced. This is brown hydrogen. And the last one is much cleaner. So there is a third hydrogen as a byproduct, which is chloride sodium hydrogen. It's produced from chloride sodium electrolysis or brine electrolysis. We talk about 5% of hydrogen produced in France with this technology. Actually, you won't have, you will have almost 0 kilo of CO2 produced for each kilo of hydrogen produced. And this is like water electrolysis, but the difference is that you use a water with a lot of salt, which is called brine. This hydrogen is there is a link with our salt caverns that we use for the storage of gas or hydrogen, because when we want to build a salt cavern to produce hydrogen, to store hydrogen, we proceed to the leaching of a salt cavern, and we have a waste which is brine. And this brine is sometimes used by the chemical industry for the process of production of chloride. And actually, you've got a kind of circular economy between this brine, which is used by this chemical industry, and the hydrogen, which is a byproduct of their process, and which is presently either emitted into the air or burnt for heating. And we aim at using it for better uses, which are mobility, hydrogen mobility, or the consumption of hydrogen in industry.
Okay, Yannick, maybe we can display a map, because we have a slide from your side. It's just a map to see in France the different locations and the different ways hydrogen is produced.
Yes, here you've got a map of our projects, of the Storages projects. When we want to develop a project on a territory, we try to develop territorial hydrogen hubs linked to the uses and as close as possible to the uses. And the uses which are really interesting are hydrogen mobility, hydrogen for mobility, and hydrogen for industrial uses. We've got two sources of production we work on, which are water electrolysis, and we also work on brine electrolysis. Today we've got 3 kinds of projects that we invest in and that we develop. The first kind of project is a commercial hydrogen project for industrial uses and mobility uses. You can see, for instance, the projects like Ecology and Iber in France, in the Grand Est region, and in Châteauroux city, Vanguard in the United Kingdom too, and in Bourgogne-Franche-Comté region, we work also with Dijon city with on a project with buses and refuse trucks.
Maybe because we don't have time to say everything.
Kind of project is project which includes storage in salt caverns, like Hipster, which is a project which has been funded by a European call for projects, FCAGU. And the last kind of projects are e-methane projects, methanation projects like Métis-Centre and Iconé. So today we've got six winning projects of French and European funding calls for projects. These are projects between 1 and 5 megawatts production. And we've got bigger projects like H de Bordeaux, like
by the way, this is the example we're going to see right now in the port of Bordeaux. So very quickly, please, because time is running. We carry on the next slide. Okay, that's it.
Yes, so H de Bordeaux is a territorial hydrogen hub in Bordeaux. We work with Nouryon, which is a chemical industry, which has about 3,000 of tons of hydrogen as a byproduct each year. We aim at using it, purifying this hydrogen, conditioning it, and using it for several uses, which are industrial uses, mobility uses. We work also with Bordeaux Métropole and the port of Bordeaux, and for the port uses, which are port logistics and stationary uses. This project is linked with other projects, H2 projects in the Nouvelle-Aquitaine region, and at last we've got about 30 megawatts production projects in this region, and about 13 H2 mobility stations which are foreseen in this region, and it will help projects to develop together, and it will answer to the question how can I refill my car or anything else if I drive more than 100 kilometers, for instance.
Okay, thank you. So, Yannick, sorry, we have to stop for the moment because we have other speakers following, and again, time is running fast. So maybe we will have some additional questions for you later on. I would like to carry on with Taya Kronborg from Life Company, which is a startup based in the west of France, in Nantes. Taya, you're online with us. So Life is a young company, but with already a lot of ambitious projects. And the aim of the motto of the company is to produce green hydrogen directly, for instance, from wind turbines.
Yes, definitely. Thank you very much, Laurent, for this opportunity. So Life, like you said, it's a new company. We started in 2017. And what we do is we are producers and sellers. So we sell renewable hydrogen. And you heard that there are lots of different colors of hydrogen. But what you should remember is that Life, it's just green. We don't do blue, we don't do turquoise, no brown, no gray. We only deal with green hydrogen. And we're just a company, I have no actions in oil or natural gas or anything. We just work on hydrogen. We really, really believe that hydrogen is going to be the future. And our motto is, let's change things now and not tomorrow. So that's why we're here. And yes, we do something no one else does. So we work on direct connection, our plants. We work on electrolyzer plants. We connect them directly to renewable energies. So when I say that our hydrogen is actually green, it's really, really green, because the electrons that are produced with renewable energies from PV, from wind, they go directly into the electrolyzers to produce the green hydrogen. So that is what we do. We have our first site, which is currently under construction, which will be operational in this spring. It's based in France, in the western part of France, in Bouen. And what you see on the picture behind, it's our site, and you can see the windmills. So we actually have a cable that goes from this windmill park directly to the electrolyzer. The electrolyzer is quite big. We can produce at least 1 ton of hydrogen per day. And the idea is to produce it in a semi-centralized way, which means that we locate the production centers closely to the renewable energies. They are big, so we can produce at very good cost. And then we deliver the hydrogen compressed to the users all around. Could be cities, could be industrials, and for this project, we use hydrogen trucks. So we will actually have a completely zero emission from production all the way to the end user.
So it's a green end-to-end approach.
It is. It really is.
So you have some projects in France, not only in Vendée, which is in the west part of the country, but also in other locations, and even in whole Europe.
Yes, exactly. Why stop with France when Europe is so interested and keen in also having hydrogen? We have at least 12 production plants which are currently being built, or projects which will be operational quite soon in France. These are projects that look a little bit like the one we do in Vendée with bigger sites serving mobility and industry. And we have also opened a daughter company in Germany now. So we work both in Germany, and we actually develop projects all over Europe, in Scandinavia, in the southern countries, Germany, Netherlands, and so on. So it's really a global company now with lots of projects in the pipe.
And you're working with a strong partner, which is Nel company based in Norway.
Yes, we have a framework agreement with Nel. Very happy to have Jon André here as well. The electrolyzer we will be putting in place in Boin will be a Nel electrolyzer. So, and they will also supply some of our sites, or at least a lot of our sites that we have under development all over Europe.
Okay, by the way, I would like now to introduce Jon André Løkke, who is the CEO from Nel, and we are very happy to welcome him. Hello, Mr. Løkke. How are you?
Hello, I'm very good, thank you. Thank you very much for having us. And hello, Taya. How is it? Hope things are okay. Happy New Year.
Thank you for your best wishes. So, yes, you're a partner of a live company, and amongst others, yes, you're working on the electrolyzers in Boin, in the west of France.
That is correct. So we are proud partners of Life. We've been working and talking to Life for a long time, and we signed a framework agreement earlier, some time ago, and obviously we are moving forward with that, and we like to work with Life because they are really focusing on green. I think that's really good, and they also challenge us as a company. You know, tells us what kind of solutions they need, and that obviously gives us some good direction on what we should develop going forward. So it's a great collaboration. I'm very happy to see that they're also moving into other parts of Europe, because you know, they can do a lot of good also in other parts of Europe.
Okay, so we have a picture showing what is your technology. So yes, this is an electrolyzer from Nel. So of course it's your activity, Mr. Løkke. I guess you're happy to see that the EU has strong ambitions for producing green hydrogen. I guess it's good for your business.
Yes, indirectly it's good for us. I mean, obviously we do not benefit directly, because most of the time our customers benefit, and that's how it should be. We very much support or are very encouraged by what is going on in Europe now, and the ambitions that are putting in place, the targets which are country by country. Money is being put on the table, and then, you know, we still need to see this turn into projects. There is some work that remains, but we've started to see the ball rolling much faster, and that's very encouraging. And then obviously for us, it means also that we need to move even faster. I mean, we need to develop the building blocks that are relevant for the customers, so that they are able to execute their projects in a good way. And as you know, we are both on PEM and alkaline, and we invest heavily in both platforms, so that we should have the best offering on both in terms of capex and opex on both platforms. And currently we're investing a lot of money, you know, taking it on our books, basically in standardizing different building blocks, so that you know, customers can like Life can choose you know, between these building blocks, because one of the issues with the hydrogen production in the past has been that, equipment is so much, but then you have this huge engineering component that comes on top. And that is not a scalable business model. You need to get rid of this engineering part, integrate it into standard building blocks so you can basically just roll out the technology and repeat it again and again. That's the way to get the cost down. So that's what we are doing.
So, by the way, you're going to open a new facility in Norway, so it will help to make the technology more accessible?
It will help a lot. It will cut the cost with more than half of the system, and it's not the end. It's the beginning. We will continue to cut cost, it's quite a unique site. I really look forward to opening up and having a welcome event for our partners, because it's a fully automated production line, fully automated chemical line with supporting robot cells, and basically it's something that has never been done before globally, on a global basis. This is really taking it to the next level. So it'll be exciting to show to the world what's going on here.
You seem to be very confident in the future of electrolyzers. Am I right?
I am very confident on the future for electrolyzers in general, definitely, and I hope, and we are doing all we can to be a relevant leading player. There is still more projects on the kind of prospect list than there is activities on the ground. We have a long list of 100, 200, even more than 400 megawatt projects that we're working on, but you still have to see investment decision being made and people are executing. From that point of view, I think Life has quite a clever model, because you don't want to make the hurdle too high. You want to create green hydrogen, and I think it's a clever way to have kind of this semi-centralized production. Close to, not on-site necessarily, but not too far away from the customer, and then you can build kind of smaller hubs. It doesn't have to be 100 megawatt. 2, 3, 4 megawatt, maybe 10 megawatt is a good size, and I think that is quite a clever way of approaching this part.
Thank you, Mr. Leuke. Please stay online. I would like to now ask a question to Pierre-Etienne Franc from Air Liquide. I would like you, Pierre-Etienne, to mention what's going on in Canada, because in Bécancour, which is in the French part, it's in Quebec, I guess, you have a big facility to produce green hydrogen for the North American market.
Yeah, indeed. As you know, we prefer only to invest in the French part of the Norway. we had the opportunity to indeed test and demonstrate indeed today the largest PEM facility in the world. It's hydrogenics technology, with whom we have also a financial and a strategic partnership. We have 20% of the company. And when we did this move, we also did this large project. It's been now started for a couple of weeks. I think it started early December. And it's so far, as you know, when you're starting a plant, you always are worried that everything goes fine. But so far, so good. The operating mode is even a little bit higher than the nominal nameplate capacity. So I think it's demonstrating that PEM, I know there are debates on what are the right technologies. We don't say alkaline is not right, because we need both probably, but PEM is indeed demonstrating its capacity to deliver large-scale production with a very interesting footprint on a good reactivity. The challenges, of course, is to make it run steady, to check the durability of the membranes and so on. But our belief in Air Liquide is that as the discussion was on massive production of low-carbon hydrogen, of course, green is fundamental, and we are hopefully going to announce a couple of moves and projects over the coming weeks or months, large ones, 100 megawatts one, because we need to serve not only mobility but also industrial markets, in France, in the Netherlands, in Belgium, in Germany. Many projects are on discussion with many players, and we will be part of that. But so that's working. 20 megawatt PEM is working. We will see over the time if it's delivering the promises, but we are very satisfied with the situation. We hope to do bigger ones. We shall not completely disregard the other way to make massive clean hydrogen, which is to basically use the existing assets, capture CO2, and sink it and bring it to sink. We are already producing the biggest amount of clean hydrogen in the north of France, in Normandy, where we have carbon capture technology, which enables us to have a very significant amount of clean hydrogen production. And you've got many projects in the northern parts of Europe which are trying to do carbon sequestration so that we have another way to produce low carbon hydrogen. By the way, the LCA of those two technologies are relatively similar. The latest study the Council has done shows that they are similar. The advantage of the green, of course, is that it's purely renewable, so I'm not at all discounting that. It's fundamental, and this is the ultimate goal. And we are going to invest massively in electrolysis as well. But we need to basically not shoot ourselves in the foot. As an industry, as a global sector, I think we need to push all avenues for clean hydrogen, as Yannick mentioned also earlier today. Byproduct is also a solution, and electrolysis is, of course, the key part of it in the mid and long term. So yes, so far working well.
Okay, thank you, Pierre-Etienne. So it's time now to see if we have some questions from the chat. So I'm asking again, Emeline Conversé, do we have any questions for this session? Okay, so we have a question about, it's a technical question about the challenges to deploy at large scale electrolyzers. Is this the right question? Okay, so who can answer about this? Maybe Mr. Lequeux from NEL. I guess he's still there. Yes. So are there any technical challenges, I mean, to make larger and larger electrolyzers?
Well, the technical challenges is basically being able to execute on a project. It's quite a different business. I mean, in the past, where you had an electrolyzer being a small unit, it's a product. You put it in a container and you ship it around the world, and then you receive it and you basically plug it in and go. But now, with a 100 megawatt or a 200 megawatt site, this is a project. So it requires a certain different skill sets. And here we work together with partners that can provide that. It also requires, slightly different skill set from us, because we need to make a product which you can put together like a Lego brick building. Yeah? So we have prefabricated skids where you basically, so we design our product so that it fits into a project concept. So you can move the pieces relatively easy to a site. You can install them at the site. You can, instead of welding thousands of welds, you basically just connect these prefabricated skids. So it's a slightly different, it requires a slightly different approach from our technology, from our solutions, but also from the way that we work. I would say those are the biggest differences.
Thank you for this answer, and thank you all of you. It is the end of this session. We carry on with the next one. So this is time to talk about Switzerland with a very interesting business case, and I'm very happy to welcome Mark Freimüller. He's the CEO of Hyundai Hydrogen Mobility. Thank you for still being there. We were a bit late, and I know that in Switzerland you can't kid with time. Anyways, I'm very happy to welcome you because, as it's been said earlier, it's a very interesting business case because Hyundai is now involved in the truck activity to deliver some hydrogen-powered trucks. But the approach is not only delivering fuel cells inside trucks. There is a global approach to have some stations and the production of green hydrogen, and this is why Hyundai has created a joint venture with partners, Mark.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, first of all, thanks for having me. Yeah, just a little bit delay is always okay. No, yeah, we created a joint venture in Switzerland with our partner H2 Energy. Is a Swiss company, very knowledgeable in the whole hydrogen ecosystem and the production as well. And what we're doing here in Switzerland is basically just a start. I mean, this joint venture is responsible for all commercial vehicles from Hyundai coming to Europe. So no matter if it's truck or bus, and it's just like I said, it's a start because in Switzerland the situation is very special in regards to the economics. So that makes it a first good start in Europe, but obviously certainly we're trying to find other opportunities in other European countries then as well.
Yeah, so 1,600 trucks is quite a lot for a new beginner in this activity. How did the story start? How did you make the connection between Hyundai and the H2 mobility segment in Switzerland?
Yeah, it basically started with a hydrogen association, which was created here in Switzerland. A couple of companies got together and said, we want to establish this ecosystem around hydrogen. And our joint venture partner, H2 Energy, was basically mandated for finding a solution for that and finding the right partners to do so. And when they approached us, we from Hyundai said that it's a perfect position, of perfect offer for us to get into that this European hydrogen business on the trucking side, because it offers a good possibility for us to get into Europe, being a new player in the market, and that combined with one of the core technologies we have, which is our hydrogen technology, as Ronald just explained. In that association, there are two types of companies. So on the one hand, you have truck operators, and on the other hand, you have operators of refueling stations. So from that association, there was the commitment to not only have the trucks in operation, but also to build up the infrastructure accordingly. And that basically solves this chicken-egg dilemma in regards to supply and demand. We're always looking into that supply and demand grows together, and then we can establish a good ecosystem here around the hydrogen. And starting with the hydrogen trucks is, I think, due to the demand of hydrogen trucks are using, is the right lever basically to start this ecosystem compared to passenger cars, for example.
Can you tell us about the agenda, because the first trucks are already on the road and there is a plan also for the refueling stations?
Yeah, we have the first 20 trucks on the road. Another 30 are delivered in the next couple of weeks, so to say. And then, as you said before, we have a plan for 1,000 units until 23 and around about 1,600 until 25. And there's a rollout plan for hydrogen refueling stations in parallel to that. I think just in the first quarter, we're opening up another 2 or 3. It's not done by us; it's done by the partners we have. What I just mentioned in regards to the hydrogen association, the companies operating regular refueling stations within this hydrogen association, they are basically now adding a pump for hydrogen to their regular refueling stations.
So the question is now, is it a replicable model, business model in other countries in Europe? Maybe it depends on the taxation, on the regulation?
Yeah, that's true. There are a couple of aspects to that. I mean, the situation in Switzerland is, from a financial perspective, a pretty good one, because we have two positive things which makes it possible to start with that ecosystem in Switzerland. One is obviously that the diesel price is much higher in Switzerland compared to other European countries. So that means that the benchmark we have to get to is already higher. Since we are not selling the vehicles, but we're offering a so-called pay-per-use model, that means that the customer pays a certain fee per kilometer, and that includes, except for the driver, includes basically everything, including the hydrogen. That now means that if we try to really meet the total cost of ownership per kilometer, a higher diesel price obviously gives us an advantage. But what's more important is, and you're absolutely right with that, the road tax. There's a road tax here which is completely connected or directly connected to the mileage you're doing and to the weight of the vehicle. So the more you drive and the heavier the vehicle is, the more taxes you have to pay. And this is, there's an exemption for emission-free vehicles. They do not have to pay this tax. And that is a significant amount. We're talking here about something like 60,000 euros for a 34-ton truck doing 80,000 kilometers per year. So utilizing the pay-per-use model gives us an opportunity to factor that in and explain to the customer, okay, you have on the one hand side this emission-free vehicle and you do not have to pay this tax. And on the other side, you have this diesel truck and where you have to pay this tax. So now comparing that, we are already at a price point what the current diesel truck is capable of right now. Now, back to your question, is that replicatable to other European countries? That is exactly the question. Because in most of the other European countries, there is no CO2 tax because we're talking about an indirect CO2 tax here. And if there is one, then it's much, much lower. So there is a TCO gap and we have to close that. Now that can be done by cheaper hydrogen, that can be done by utilizing subsidies, and there are huge plans and strategies out there with significant funding how to establish an ecosystem around the hydrogen economy. Now the question is just, and we're in the process in discussion with governments to suggest certain schemes of funding which make sense. And then on the other hand, despite of the financial aspect, there is also a usability aspect to that. So with more and more city bands, with probably other usability advantages of an emission-free electric truck, which is also which can be more quieter than a regular diesel truck. Probably it's allowing a different operation earlier hours during the night or whatsoever. So there are two aspects which we need to look at. One is the usability factor for emission-free vehicles, and then the financial factor as well. But I'm confident that we'll find some good opportunities in other European countries, definitely.
Okay, thank you, Mark. I think that Ronald Grassman is still with us. If he can connect again, I have a question for him. On the truck activity. Ronald, you're still there?
I am. Do you see me?
Yes, okay. You have also some other projects for trucks with orders in North America and China, if I'm right.
Correct. So we have, I would say, we don't have progress to the extent that we are already offering products jointly. But as I explained in my earlier session, we are very dedicated to bringing down costs of the fuel cell system to an extent where we can have commercial viability fuel cell electric vehicles and fuel cell electric trucks. And that means that we also have to face the fact that Hyundai, we're not the biggest player in the commercial vehicle domain. So apart from the activities which with our own trucks that Mark just explained, we are a joint venture in Europe. We are also looking actively for partners in the commercial vehicle domain that help us scale the business. So we want to create these win-win situations with other automotive and non-automotive players to scale up our fuel cell system business and make certain that basically the cost comes down to an extent that basically offsets the extra cost that Mark just mentioned. Because to be facing and to be really very straightforward, the TCO disadvantage at the moment that we need to overcome is, of course, to some extent coming from hydrogen cost, but on the other hand, also from the high system cost.
Okay, thank you. So let's see now if we have some questions on the chat. So again, I'm asking Emmeline to tell me if it's a case. Okay, so once again, we have a question about the number of refueling stations actually available and planned. Mark, I think people maybe want to hear again about the figures in Switzerland.
Currently we have 3 hydrogen refueling stations available. Within this month, there will be another 2. By the end of the year, we will have around about 12 to 15, and then together with the trucks, basically, that number will grow probably to 70, 80 refueling stations.
Thank you. Do we have another question? Okay, so it was the only one. Thanks again for being with us, the two people from Hyundai, and we carry on with the last session. Et cette fois, je repasse au français pour appeler Hervé Gilibert, qui représente
now we're going back to French to call Hervé Gilibert,
qui interviendra juste après. Monsieur Gilibert, merci d'avoir été si patient. Je suis désolé, on a pris du retard.
Thank you for your patience. I'm sorry we're late, but we had a lot of speakers. But we've had no technical problem, and that's extraordinary. Ariane Group, let's have some news. We know that it comes from the space industry. 40 years experience in liquid hydrogen for space. And Monsieur Macron was on the site of production site yesterday, and we had the visit, of course, of Monsieur Macron, Monsieur Le Maire, and Monsieur Le Cornu, who came to the site where we developed the cryogenic motors of the Prometheus, which is a new type of engine, and simultaneously to highlight all the facilities we have in Vernon. We started to make them available to the hydrogen community during the last few years. This site has been operational for more than 40 years, and that's where we test our motors and engines. And we can check any type of technology using hydrogen, gas form or liquid. But mostly liquid. That's what we've been doing for 40 years with our partner, Air Liquide.
Alors, en parlant de partenaires, il y en a un autre qui est Engie, puisqu'en fait, tous les deux, vous travaillez
Talking
sur
about
comment
partners, you're also working with Engie on how to develop this technology that you use in space technology in terms of fuel, especially for aviation. I think we're lucky to have a lot of partners. I'm going to talk about Airbus and Safran. With Engie, we are working on liquefaction technology and the distribution on liquid hydrogen. I'm going to go back on the liquid hydrogen. Why are we talking about liquid hydrogen? Why are we talking about ports and airports? These are applications for liquid hydrogen. It doesn't offer the added value that we expected. It doesn't have the abilities to be used as we expected. We are talking about now about ships, about trucks, and also about planes later in the future. The reality of things at the moment is that there's a development of the gas form of hydrogen. There's also the case for liquid, but it will be delayed because the uses are more targeted. For trucks, we can cite TMR trucks. They announced their intention to have 500 trucks fueled with liquid hydrogen in 2025 and 30,000 in 2032. This is significant. This is a significant growth. In shipping, we have Norled in Norway. They have started to produce a hydrogen-powered ferry, which will be operational this year with Engie, CGA, CGM as well. We also have an IPCEI for container ships. And there are also lots of other shipping applications. In terms of aviation, Airbus, of course, you've seen a lot of announcements from Airbus. And since September, Airbus have been displaying their will to use liquid hydrogen for short and long range. This represents about 75% of the global fleet. In heavy transport sector, which represents about 10% of CO2 in the world, replacing currently used fuels by hydrogen should give us an 80 to 90% reduction in CO2 for a total energy of 5,000 terawatt hours per year, which will be 150 million tons of liquid hydrogen to produce. And this is significant. With these end uses, of course, we need to ask ourselves about how we're going to implement a production chain or a value chain. And let's start with what's at stake with liquid hydrogen. We didn't mention it, but it's natural for other people. It's 20 Kelvin in temperature. Under 153 Celsius in refrigeration. As soon as you have liquid gas hydrogen upstream, we now have the question of liquefaction. The technical efficiency is fairly reduced at the moment. We need typically to have power of 12 kilowatt hour to produce 1 kilogram of liquid hydrogen from gaseous hydrogen. So if you do a ratio with the energy power of the product, we need a third of its energy power to produce it. So that gives 2 to 3 euros a kilo, and that's something we're looking into. And we're looking into it with ENGIE, and we are working on this upstream segment. So storage and distribution. What's at stake here? It's to store first, to store with the long-term storage. The molecule is intrinsically volatile, and as we said, it's at 20 Kelvin in temperature, so this is a difficulty in terms of tightness and thermal conditioning in terms of tanks and piping. With Air Liquide on the space segment, we know this technology. So now the transport, for us in the future, we will not have a massive production somewhere which will be distributed far. And we are thinking more in terms of hubs where we would have local production of hydrogen. It's liquefaction, storage as well, in medium quantity, and local distribution in the ports, in the harbors, and in the airports. So this would be a new ecosystem. Thank you for this presentation, which was very complete. We understand what's at stake. Mr. Baudin from the Région Normandie, no, Miss Baudin, sorry, can she tell us about Vernon? Vernon, it's in Normandy, Zoe is still here. The Normandy region supports the hydrogen hub on Vernon there will be announced a partnership with the region next week, and this was implemented to communicate with the European community to present the project. It's really a project in which the region is very interested. I would like to finish with Pierre-Etienne from Air Liquide. I'm being a bit confused. I can tell it's the end of the conference. So Air Liquide, Pierre-Etienne, it's the liquid hydrogen, something you know well, and it's used for transporting hydrogen in the States from station to station. So Ariane is the historical partnership. In fact, we learned everything about hydrogen thanks to Ariane, because we needed to help building the launchers, the European launchers. So the market is essentially in the United States, and the biggest consumer of liquid hydrogen in the world is not NASA anymore. It's Plug Power, because it's a good means to distribute hydrogen on a site which uses about 500 kilos. That's why in California, or in Nevada rather, just next door, we are building the biggest site of liquid hydrogen production in the world, 30 tons a day, and we're going to develop the network for refueling buses, trucks. Electrolysis, the liquid hydrogen is essentially the right connection with electrolysis. So we are thinking about fueling planes, trucks, etc. And we are really also talking about intensive uses. We're going to have hubs implemented in ports and airports for these harbor type logistics. We're going to have a mix of ships and trucks. We'll also have networks to transport through continents. It's a big competition with ammonia, methanol, etc. If you produce energy, store it, and reuse it, you don't have much choice. You do have to do it in liquid form. Yes, it's a major topic. I insist maybe the public authorities could listen. We heard about the Vernon site and the partnership between ENGIE and Ariane. I just want to mention something. I hope we're going to produce new things and not have competitors use our technologies. Let's say it again, Europeans are the best in the world on hydrogen. We need to use this advantage, because obviously the US are also the major users. But we need to develop, we need to support and develop rules for its use. We're going to now go to the last questions before the end of this conference.
Alors, c'est encore une question qui revient sur
It's a question again on hydrogen being shipped by boats. Again, it's the fight between ammonia and liquid hydrogen. Have I got it right?
Comme on dit en anglais, the jury's out, c'est-à-dire qu'on ne sait pas encore quelle filière va.
We do not know yet which sector is going to win the market. For ammonia, we manage transport perfectly well between continents. So on this side, ammonia is ahead. In terms of production, it's more expensive. In terms of energy, it's more or less similar. The problem is ammonia has to be reprocessed into hydrogen. I do not have, in terms of technology, we're not very advanced. It's rather complicated. And it's again a loss of capex and energy. So we have at stake the energy produced by the production per kilogram. And it's the fact that today we are not very advanced in terms of storage and also in terms of mastering the boil-off on tankers, and we need a few years to get there. But I think both sectors will be justified when we manage the boil-off. Liquid hydrogen in big containers on a ship gets rid of the toxicity that is linked to ammonia. It's also a problem of the volatility, which means ships with passengers are not also a good idea. I'm sorry that we were late in this conference, but we had fantastic speakers. This is a first conference out of the 3 for Hydrogen Business Connect, and I invite you to meet us tonight around 5 o'clock and tomorrow morning. And I will say see you soon, and there will be a slide with the other conference, and hoping to see you on live on YouTube. Thank you.